Warning, this show contains explicit material, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. And if you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life raw. And today I want to talk about gardening made easy. Just garden, man. The plants are going to tell you what they need. They're going to tell you whether they're going to live or die. We're going to talk about all that today. I think that there's just a myriad of information out there that people like to sound smart, and there is some really smart tactics. There's a lot of stuff that is very, very smart, but in reality, you hear contradicting things, and I have contradicting experiences, right? So there's a lot of stuff that I'm not supposed to grow right now, but I'm growing it. My number one thing was do not ever biggest rule, never compact your soil. I'm doing the opposite. I have a compacting machine lever thing that I've invented that compacts my container gardenings as hard as I can get. I put all my weight on it because I've made a soil that's as hard as you compact it, it just crumbles in your hand. So I've completely defied the rule number one, and I'm getting excellent growth. And you can check out my shit if you don't believe me at Biodegradable Container Gardening on YouTube. We're working on a website right now, but you can check out the YouTube site. It's on Instagram as well, the BC Gardening Guy. So yeah, you guys just start growing, putting things in the ground. And one of the things, so as I told you guys, let's start off with that. What I started off with was forget about knowing what to plant and all that. Start looking at how to plant. Let's look at soil. So we need water. We need some sort of vitamins and minerals, which most people say to use compost. And they are good things. I've got some different ideas about compost myself. But we just need to give some mineralization and stuff and let stuff rest. And we're going to talk about that. But for the most part, I think we need to learn how to plant, spacing and things like that and in our soils. And I think that one way for you guys to do a very cheap and easy, not very complicated if you so choose to, is get yourself a mason jar, a glass jar. It could be a water bottle. It could be anything. You just need to get your soil, and it'd be nice if you could sift it. And you're going to fill this bottle up with about a third of your soil and fill the rest of the bottle up with water. You're going to take this water bottle or mason jar, you're going to shake the shit out of it, get everything all stirred up, and then let it sit there for a few days. And what you're going to find is you're going to have, at the very top layer, you're going to have clay content. And in the middle, you're going to have your silt. And at the bottom is going to be the heavy stuff like sand. And this is going to tell you a spectrum of how much of each of these three ingredients that you have in your soil. Very important because there's vitamins and minerals and things like clay. They don't heat as fast in the warmth of it's said, in the hot part of the year. And in the silt, you have lots of vitamins and minerals and stuff too. And in the sand, of course, helps with drainage. So I don't want to make the show all about that, but because I'm going in a different direction here, try to make it simple and easy. But if you so want to do that, it's cheap, and everybody's got a bottle and they got water. And it'll kind of give you a general idea. Then you can Google it and say, well, let me see, what do certain plants need in order to grow in an environment? How much silt do they need? How much sand? What's my soil like? The reason why I think that it's kind of a cool experiment for you to visually see, but the reason I don't like this is because just a few feet over on whatever land you're on, whether you're spin farming like me off somebody's property you don't own, you're utilizing somebody else's land, or it's your home, regardless, you never know what's going on in that soil. And that's why I say just stick stuff in the ground and see how well they do. I'm going to give you guys a little hint here with permaculture. And that's what I want to implement a lot more on this show. I've been practicing that for a long time now. And there's a wonderful gentleman by the name of Sepp Holzer. I think he's in Austria. And one of the things he said is, you'll know that you have nitrogen content in your soil. For those of you who don't know, that's nitrogen is a gas. It helps things to get green, your plants to get green. But it's a gas, and it's just kind of hiding. It's a nutrient hiding inside the soil. Well, as I said, it's an ocean. It's 1 foot over, 2 feet over, 5 feet over, 10 feet over. It could be something completely different. One of the things that Sepp Holzer teaches us in permaculture is that anywhere where there's stinging nettle is a good sign that there's nitrogen. And when I was renting a piece of property in a lot of areas that I observe in the wilderness, what you'll see is like an ocean. You'll see like a bunch of stinging nettle when it comes this way. It'll present itself in little patches. Some places it grows, some places it doesn't. If we observe nature, it's actually teaching us, showing us where in the meadows and even on your own property, where the nitrogen is fixed and where it's not. So that's kind of cool that once the stinging nettle seed themselves and they spread their seed all over and they start to grow, it actually gives you a map, like a topographical map of where things are going to go good and where things don't. So I love the idea of stinging nettle because stinging nettle is actually edible, very high in vitamins A and C. It's known to fight off cancer, and it tastes kind of like spinach. You can boil it for about 2 minutes in water. For those of you who don't know, stinging nettle, don't go start picking stuff if you don't know what it is. I don't want you guys to get sick and poison yourself. But it's very distinguishable. It's called stinging nettle because it has little needles on it, and it will actually cause you a rash and blisters on your skin, depending on your skin type, pretty harsh. But it's actually edible. By boiling it for 2 minutes, you get rid of those toxins and those needles, and you can actually eat it. I prefer taking it, treating it like spinach. That's kind of what it tastes like. Add a little bit of butter on it and some salt and a little squeeze of lemon and just eat it. It's fantastic and it's free. But what I love about that is that it's just showing us that, hey, if that can grow, that means other vegetables can grow in that region. As long as they have a few things, like important details like water. So, yeah, if you feel like you need to do the silt and clay and sand tests, that kind of helps you out a little bit. But I think that just planting stuff in the ground and giving them water is what's going to really work. Now, I don't know what your situation is in your life right now. If you're a workaholic, if you got a job and you said you think that you don't have time, all you got to do is set yourself up some drip irrigation is what I use. And this goes off of a timer, and these things can be used off 2 AA batteries. And for a setup for under $100, you can literally automate a watering system that'll take care of probably like 100 plants for under $100. So, and you don't have to be there. This thing could be set to where it'll go off at 6 in the morning every day, or it can go off every 6 hours, every 12 hours, every 24 hours. You can change the time anywhere you want. You can shut this thing off. You can do a test run on it. And I look at this thing here to automate any place that you can in your life, and this is one of them. So if you think that you don't have the time to garden because of watering issues, make that a little investment. Think about what the payback would be. $100. While you're at work, this thing's watering stuff for you and producing your own food. That's all you got to do. I mean, literally, you can probably, without adding any fertilizers or compost or anything in your own backyard, just set up a little drip irrigation, loosen up the soil, pick out a bunch of weeds and stuff, and just start planting some seeds. Just poke some holes in the ground right where the drip irrigation emitters are, right where it drips, and just plant some seeds in there and see what happens. And it's going to tell you, this place is good or this place is bad. On compost, I want to talk about just burying your stuff. So it was my grandmother on my mother's side who would always dig holes in the ground, especially around her fruit trees, and she would just dump her garbage, all her compost, right? Not breadcrumbs and meats and stuff like that, of course, but all her vegetable scraps. And what would happen is, say a cucumber would go half rotten or something, and she grew up during the Great Depression, so she knew how to save and live frugal like I do. But she'd throw that part away and eat the one that didn't taste that good. There'd be some tomatoes and stuff that slipped out and whatever have you, just a bunch of vegetables, right? And she would just dig a hole and she would bury this in the ground and she'd cover it with soil. And I don't believe she even watered it. And in certain areas, after the rains would come in the winter and the spring, the trees, I believe what happened there is the trees just stopped the rain from happening. They slowed it down and put little tiny gentle drips. And because of all the mulch from the leaves that fell down and everything, and the worms coming in and eating, and especially since it's shaded under the tree, all the moisture was trapped in that soil, and it made it very soft and very moist. And guess what happened? Without my grandmother doing anything, tomato bushes popped up, eggplants popped up, cucumbers popped up, zucchini, just things on their own. And she would just look at it and she'd water it from time to time. And guess what would happen? She'd have an entire tomato bush, cherry tomato bush, climbing up the tree. She'd have squash and corn and things just popping up all on its own. She did relatively nothing. And this is what I'm telling you guys, is gardening is, there's a lot of smart stuff, as I say, out there that I think is wise to do. But for the most part, let nature tell you where to plant things. Now, let's just take this for example. If you did a lot of these holes, and it doesn't have to be under a tree, you know, don't start listening to everything I'm saying. I got to do exactly like he said. Experiment. Just start digging some holes everywhere, throwing your scraps in there, put them where your drip irrigation is. If you think that you can't afford seeds, I've done this myself. You can go get yourself some oregano, some thyme. You can get like a lot of rosemary. You can get basil. So many different things. Celery is another one. Take the ends of the celery, just leave the celery heart, right? Take that and stick that in the ground. Just stick it about 1.5 inches, 2 inches deep, and just plant it, put it there, and water it. Granted, it's the right time of year. What this thing's going to do is take root. You can take rosemary, and you can take thyme and oregano and different herbs and just stick them in the ground as sticks. Just wipe off all the leaves. Just leave about a good 5 inches of just raw stem with the leaves on top. Stick them in the ground. What'll happen is if the soil stays moist enough and the timing is right and the heat and everything, they will start to root and they will actually grow. Again, go check out my biodegradable container gardening YouTube channel, and you'll see on there my herbs. Those were I bought at the store. I guess is what I'm trying to get the shit out of my mouth. I bought myself some of these herbs. I ate half of them. I used them in my soups and stuff. And then I just took a couple stems and I stuck them in some jars of water. Some of them I just stuck in my own soil. And they grew. I have these giant bushes. So if I couldn't afford seeds, I needed to buy the stuff to eat anyways. I'll just save one of these every time I get them and plant them in the ground and see how well they do. I've done this with horsetail. I'm using horsetail tea to combat powdery mildew to see if it works. It's an experiment, and I'm seeing if it'll grow, and it's growing. Just little sticks in the ground. And I got these walking around town, saw some horsetail, clipped off a couple of 1-foot pieces, put them in my vehicle, brought them home, clipped up just like they do grapes. As long as you get the bottom section, is what I like to do is cut the, for those of you who don't know, that horsetail is like bamboo, right? There's these little spaces in between. They're probably about 4 inches wide. It stops, and it's another space, 4 inches. It's like bamboo, right? So what I do is I cut an angled piece to know that that's the bottom, and I cut a flat piece on the top, and just below each nodule. And what I do is I stick these in the ground, and knowing that the sharp end, that's the one that goes in the ground, the flat goes up. And I got horsetail growing. So, I don't know, I look at this and I'm like, if we just kept experimenting, walking around town, you know, grabbing herbs and different plants that are just at a restaurant or, you know, at a business place, you know, as long as you're not raping the place, you're just taking one little cutting, you know, nothing wrong with that, and taking it home and growing it for free. Go around in the alleyways, get apple seeds and stone fruits and whatever, save the seeds. I've even grown stuff from seeds, zucchinis and things like that I bought from the store. Well, zucchinis didn't work that well, but my sweet bell peppers, I've got orange and red and yellow. There's these little tiny sweet peppers. My kids like them. They're very mild and not as gassy as regular ones, but I saved all the seeds. Guess what? Those seeds grew up. So that's a perfect example right there. We got food and we also got seed. We're stacking functions, as I like to share on the show. We fed ourselves, and now we got like 100 seeds off that, and that's going to feed ourselves probably for the next few years. So you can take your compost and start burying your piles, and if nothing grows, the worms are definitely going to show up on their own. And as long as you keep it a little bit moist, it's going to decompose, and what's going to happen is you're going to have these pockets of rich nutrients, and the nitrogen is going to be stuck inside the ground, all the nutrients, all the gases that form in it. And guess what? If you do this strategically, and then you go take these seeds, as I say, and these cuttings, and you plant them right in those areas where the drip irrigation is, stuff's going to pop. It just needs time to mature, to rot, and let the worms do their business. So, 2 things here. Let's organize this a little better for you guys. What I'd like to see you guys do is dig a large trough. And I want you to dig this trough about 1 foot deep. I understand some of you guys have hard pan or hard soils. If you can't, just do it the best that you can. This compost is actually going to develop. The worms will show up and they'll actually soften your soil, the hard soil that you have, into soft stuff. But dig yourself about a 1 foot trench deep, and maybe do it about 1 foot wide. And do this about maybe 10 feet, 20 feet, however long where your drip irrigation is going to go. And you're going to toss this dirt over to the side. And then every time you bring your compost in, you're going to dump it in one area. Say you got a foot of compost. You're going to dump all your compost, all your scraps, and then you're going to immediately bury that with the soil. And it's like a gutter, right? Like a trench. And you're going to slowly go from one end to the other, burying every time that you have these food scraps. And in, I would say, about 4 to 5 months. Actually, I shouldn't even open my mouth because some climates are cold, some are hot, some are medium. It will present itself. You can always go in there. You're not going to hurt anything. Like all the gas is just going to escape. But get yourself a shovel and just kind of dig in there. If you see a lot of food particles and stuff in there, just bury it right back up and leave it alone. It'll keep going. But if you need to test this thing out, I would say after about 8 months or so, you should be good no matter where you're at. As long as the area is not frozen over. If it's frozen, it's just going to work like a refrigerator. But maybe let it go for a couple months in spring and summer and all that. And by fall, it'll definitely be ready to start planting stuff. If things don't pop up on their own. But also, if you wait till next year, all that yumminess is still going to be there for you. So we got our trenches. We have our line, our drip irrigation, which is a hose with emitters like every foot or every 6 inches running down that thing, keeping it all nice and moist. Now you have those markers of where you can plant your seeds, and it's as simple as that. That's it, man. The reason why I'm against composting and bins and stuff like that is all the work that you got to do. You got to keep spinning these things, mixing it all up. You got to make sure there's enough moisture in there. Temperature gauges is a very professional, good thing to do because you need to, if it doesn't have enough ammonia, if it's not moist enough, it's not going to really start kicking off. So the activation of things is not going to start biodegrading very fast. The biggest problem I have, though, tip though, before I move forward, you can piss on it. It actually helps it. I forget what it is in the urine. Helps stimulate the microbiology and stuff and the gases in there to decompose it. But the thing I don't like is that you'd get this big old giant, say a 5-gallon bucket full of scraps, and you keep adding and adding and adding. And by the time that it decomposes and it's ready to be spread on your garden, not only did most of the nitrogen evaporate from it, but it also, you get like maybe a half a gallon of some really good, it's great stuff too, don't get me wrong, great compost. Why don't you just take it and bury it, trap it, let it stay moist, let it do whatever it needs to do, and let the worms and the microbiology and everything just do all the work for you. And you'll be in a good place. So let's move forward here. As far as I have a pretty good experience with aquaponics, and this fits in here anyways, that it's to simplify things, is that when you set up an aquaponics system, for those of you who don't know, it's growing food in water with fish or aquatic animals. It could be, crawdads, it could be catfish, whatever has you. Anything that lives in water and poops and pees. And believe it or not, yeah, fish poop and pee. So the ammonia and everything from the fish, the dung, the shit from the fish will go in. The plants will actually convert this into and utilize the nutrients and take away all the bad stuff. I don't want to get in a bunch of technical terms here for you guys, but it'll oxygenate the water to a degree, and it will send that back and clean it for the fish. So the fish have a good environment, a clean environment. It's basically like a filter, right? So the fish, it's symbiotic relationship. The plants clean stuff up, they take the nutrients from the fish, send it back, and it's all great. What's awesome, though, is that what I learned in aquaponics is that the water will actually turn brown, and this is a bacteria that just shows up in and all of itself. And you don't have to do anything. It's just in the air. And it's actually a very healthy thing. That's what all the brown muckiness is. That's what you want, is brown muckiness in an aquaponics system, not these showy ones that are all perfectly clear, you know what I mean? All crystal clear. That means that there's really, the nutrients are being all siphoned out. In fact, breeding such animals like tilapia fish, when you grow them in dirty water and stuff full of algae, when they take a breath in, right when they're born, they're babies, the food goes into the mouth and goes out of the mouth. They start tasting that, nom, 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 nom. Food goes in, food goes out. They have a higher mortality rate. They have a higher survival rate by growing fish in dirty water like that. Not necessarily dirty, but full of algae and stuff like that, because it's in their environment. Whereas people who cleanse the water, they get like very few, like a very low percentage of survival rate for baby fingerlings of tilapia fish growing. So one of this really cool video is a brick garden I saw. It must be it's an Asian descent people from somewhere. I don't know where it was, but they basically had red clay bricks. And what they did is in between the corners, the four corners where the bricks would meet, they were growing such things as Napa cabbage. And the whole thing was layered with bricks, guys. There's no soil whatsoever. These bricks are approximately, I don't know where they are in China, but they should be about 2.5, 3 inches thick by about 6 by about 3.5 inches wide. But they basically just have about a 3-inch cover on top. So they're protecting the soil, holding in the moisture and any nutrients and stuff they have underneath. Well, these people, it holds down the weeds. So my idea is if you took bricks and you just chopped off an inch of the corner on all four corners, and every time they met, there would be this square diamond that would be relatively about the size of an American quarter or silver dollar, and you'd be able to drop some seeds in there and cover them up with soil and then give them some water and they would pop right up. There'd be no weeds or nothing competing with them. I don't know how these people were feeding nutrients and stuff like that. Maybe dumping in some aquaponics, some fish tank water, or some sort of compost tea or something if needed. Or maybe they just had wonderful soil. I don't know. But if you watch the video, as long as it wasn't fixed, they had just rows and rows of vegetables growing right outside, right in the middle of bricks. And this is where I just want to talk briefly of most things want to live. And let's talk about why all things want to live. But what it comes down to, a lot of people saying, I hear it all the time, I don't have a green thumb, I couldn't even keep a houseplant alive, or I don't know what the saying was, I couldn't keep something alive, it's just too difficult. Well, a lot of things want to die too if they're brought up in the wrong environment. So it's nothing that you did. It's nothing that you didn't do. It's nothing that you did. They're just weak genetics in plants. And just because this is a big lesson for a lot of people who are experiencing gardening, just because you're able to grow something in your field, in your home, doesn't mean that the person 5 houses down or even the person next to you will be able to grow. Sometimes there's variations of soil, as I said. And this is a thing that confounds people when they say, I don't know why my stuff ain't growing. Well, you might be growing the wrong species. I had on here, yeah, that's what's going on here next, is why diversity is best, in my opinion. So a lot of things will die. A lot of things will live, and diversity is the key to keep experimenting. Just because you plant, say let's go with lettuce. Just because you grow lettuce, one species, and you say, well, I can't grow lettuce anymore. I'd like to share something with the people that I went under their wings for them to teach me aquaponics. And they said they had to try something like 60, 70, it might have even been 100 different varieties of lettuce. And this is in the islands of Hawaii, until they found like 3 to 4 different species that would actually live. And there's a ton of species out there, right? And they had to go through trials and errors until they actually found something. So on your soil will present itself, or the plants will let you know what can grow and what can't. And that's why I say diversity is key, is that you try multiple different varieties. Go over to your friends and swap seeds. I should do a whole podcast on that. That's actually what I'm working on right now, is getting a community of people growing not just their own food, but growing their own seed for us all to exchange and to feed people who are hungry. I'm just going to spur off here real quick. I'm just so excited about it. Is the saying goes, teach a human how to, give a human a fish, you fed them, but you teach them how to fish, you fed them for life. And that's what I'm looking at, is grow seeds, get a lot of people growing seeds for me, and that way I can exchange and give them things for equal value exchange. But when we have an abundance of seeds, we give these to the poor people, the people who are going hungry, don't have food, and educate them a little bit, such as this show. Just go bury some compost and take these seeds. Just take this one seed that I gave you, and it's going to pop up into a plant. And you're going to eat off this thing. And I want you to save some. You'll probably get like a tomato. It's going to feed you tomatoes hopefully for months to come. And if you just save one tomato, one fucking tomato is going to give you, what, 50, maybe 100 different tomato plants. And that's going to feed you even more. And every year that this goes by, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then guess what? You can spread the yumminess to the people you know who are going hungry, and you can give them 100 seeds and show them the tactics and share things. And then we spread this goodness all over the world, and nobody goes fucking hungry. All right, done with the fucking rant. Let's get back to the shit here. So yeah, Some things it's just inevitable. It's nothing that you did. Can't give up. Just keep trying and utilize what I'm saying. Don't go and plan like I have to till everything all up and I got to do all this extra shit that everybody's telling me to do. Just give this a shot. I guarantee you, all of you will be able to grow at least one thing if you just try and just make it so simple. Things just need some good soil. They just need a little bit of yumminess in the soil, and most of all, they need a consistent amount of water. So if you don't even need to get a drip irrigation system. You don't have to listen to everything I'm saying here. Go get yourself a watering can or a 5-gallon bucket with a ladle, and just once a day, go out there and watch and keep an eye on these things and just keep them watered and watch what happens. So yeah, diversity is best, I think, because of vitamins and nutrition, the minerals and things like that, and also the survival rate. Planting multiple different varieties, they're all going to show you. They're going to present to you what likes it and what doesn't. And I also like to take a time here to say too that if you diversity, not just in species, but diversity in placement of these species. Go and take yourself, if you're really serious about this, go to your north end, go to your east end, your west end, your south end, go to the middle, to the left, to the right, under the tree, out of the tree. Plant stuff everywhere. And I don't even think you even need to mark down. You'll see when they grow up. If you want to get technical, mark down what exactly you grew. But what you can do, and this is what we're running into here now, is a word on land race. So what's going to happen by you diversifying placement of all this stuff and with different species, mark them down, as I said, the species that you did or not. You know, let's look at cherry tomatoes, or like tomatoes in general. There'd be a cherry tomato, a beefsteak tomato, a Roma tomato, whatever. That you know exactly what it was. But if you need to mark that all down and organize it, do it. But you can also just throw the seeds out, let the cards fall where they may. And the things that pop up, they will present to yourself. You'll know that they're a cherry tomato. And then you can keep everything that pops up, let a certain amount of those go to seed so you can save them for next year's planting. But a word on land racing, and I'm going to see if I can get this guy, a friend of mine on Facebook named Joseph Lofthouse. And I haven't looked too much on land racing, but he's my favorite. And I just like his style, and we talk a little bit on Facebook. He doesn't really know me personally, but we are friends on Facebook, and see if I can get him on the show to help a lot of you guys out. But check Joseph Lofthouse, L-O-F-T House, H-O-U-S-E. And there's a couple podcasts that he's on. Check him out on Facebook, and he's always publishing some really cool stuff. But land race is basically, what I'm about to tell you guys next is, by spreading these seeds everywhere, they're going to cross-pollinate, and they're going to start acclimating to your biome, your area. And that what's going to happen is every time a mama plant is born, it's going to instill energy inside those seeds, because everything wants to live, right? We just said that. Everything wants to live on this planet, so they'll do everything they can. So it's gonna genetically encode information in these seeds that, hey, this is what you're gonna have to deal with. It's gonna get cold, it's gonna get hot, it's gonna get dry, it's gonna get wet. And those plants are slowly, after generation, are gonna become adapted to your area. And then pretty soon you'll have a plant that is completely adapted. Like it's superior to anything that Burpee or any professional people could bring you. In fact, they would pay you to have those fucking seeds. Money couldn't buy the amount of years that you keep replanting, because those things know what they're in for. I'm running out of time here. I got to pay for these shows. It looks like we're going on 28 minutes. Oh yeah, we got to end this soon. I fucking hate this. I need to pay the extra money to do longer shows, so I'm not so cramped here. So sorry for that, guys, but I'm going to have to, I guess I'm going to have to shut this fucking thing down. Let everything rest, guys, in between. You don't want to rape the land. I got to shoot these off the list pretty fast. Observe what nature does. There's seasons. You don't want to just keep planting and exhausting things. As I said, take what I said where you bury the compost. Let it sit. Let it do its thing. Let the worms come in there, eat it all up for you. But definitely give it a resting period before you just start digging it back up or planting stuff in there. Let nature rest in your backyard. Do it in sections, right? Find out where everything grows good, and then don't just rape that area. Let it rest for at least 3-4 months out of the year. Bury some compost in there before the winter comes, and let that microbiology and everybody kind of get reset in there, and you'll do a lot. You'll do very good for yourself. I want you guys to check out New Forest Farms. This is in Restoration Agriculture, is an awesome book by Mark Shefford. And I want you guys to check out Joseph Lofthouse. None of these people know, well, Joseph Lofthouse knows that I exist, but I've never asked much of them. But check out these guys. I want you guys to kind of get familiarized. And if not too, I just want to inspire you guys to see what great people are doing with the earth. And fuck this, I'm going to let this fucking thing go. I'll pay the extra fucking money. I don't give a shit. I want you guys to know that there's positivity out there. And Mark Shepard is probably one of the most profound people I've ever seen on the planet of growing food in a symbiotic relationship where they literally don't water, they don't do anything. They utilize permaculture, and he sells organic produce to, I believe, if not United States, to the world. 115 acres, if memory serves me correct. He's got 40 years experience, and this man, I believe, will change the world, what he's doing. I hope that my biodegradable container gardening will help people in the city, but I think holding a candle to major food production, the big time farmers out there, and this can coincide with what you're doing in your small backyard, or the spin farm site that you're utilizing somebody else's land to farm on. This is going to help you to see kind of, wow, what is possible, and how can I utilize nature and not have to fight it. Let what wants to live, and stop trying to kill. Let die what wants to die. Let live what wants to live. We have this backwards, man. We keep trying to kill the stuff that wants to live, and keep it alive the things that wants to die. That's insanity. And this man's work in a bottle will definitely, hopefully inspire you. As I hope I've inspired you guys, and let you guys know that, look, it's not that fucking difficult, and it's not that intricate. It's just, I think, people trying to sound smart and like me and just talk a bunch of shit and steer you guys around to get you guys' attention so that you follow whatever the fuck they have to say. Look, this is free. This is easy. Just do it. So, yeah, I better stop before I go on a crazy, crazy rant. But I think we're doing a whole series of recession preparedness, and I think that this one really coincides with that, because I think a lot of us are going to have to start learning to grow our own food. And as I said, I hope that today I've inspired you guys to experiment and try this. I mean, the only thing I can say that could backfire on the information I gave you is that you tried everything I said to do and nothing's growing. It could be that you have an area that was flattened and that was possibly polluted with, say, oils or chemicals or something that went in there, and there's just no life. There's just no life going on in there. Someone could have dumped motor oil. I've seen people do that before. They dig a hole in the ground, dump the motor oil, pour motor oil around the fences to kill the weeds, and just did all kinds of very grotesque stuff. But I guarantee you, if you keep putting this compost in for years, if you're stuck with a piece of property that you own and you keep burying stuff slowly by slowly, you start adding mulch and stuff, wood chips, and go get yourself some cow shit and chicken shit and just spread it real lightly over and keep putting leaves and grasses and stuff. Everything will eventually repair itself, because nature is way more powerful than what we think it is. We think that we have our shit together and that we're so fucking smart and that we can it's been here long before us. It'll be here long after. And really, things are that simple. I don't know what to say. I hope I've motivated you guys to be able to start feeding yourselves and start growing your own food. That's the whole fucking point of my motive and everything that I'm at. I hope I've given you guys value. And in exchange, I hope that you guys would give me a like. Better yet, if you guys can review my show on Apple iTunes or Spotify, really helps to get the show kicked off and out there. It really inspires me to keep putting these shows on, but only if you guys like it. Give me a fucking middle finger too. Tell me where I'm wrong too, and tell me where I can work on shit better. So without further ado, that's the end of the show. So you can check it out. It's up and in it on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple iTunes, wherever there's the podcasts they're allowing me to be in. And go out there and have yourself a near-life experience, guys. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. Human up. Plant some shit. Live it, love it, own it, and bone it, my friends.